Hi guys, I think it's time that we go out to the shop and we talk. We're going to have a little shop talk. Hey guys, welcome to Shop Talk. What Shop Talk is where we kind of take apart the scriptures, see how they were made, who they were talking to, why they were saying it, and see how that applies to us today. I really think that it's the way I operate in my shop. I don't know how to fix something until I know its intended use. I don't know how things work unless I take them apart. So that's what we're doing with Shop Talk. And, you know, Dixie's making me a great looking pour over here. I love sitting down with a cup of coffee and reading the scriptures. I love seeing what the Lord wants to reveal to me, and I think it's just such a blessing. So let's get ready for some Shop Talk. We are diving back into Hebrews. Last week we took a break. We talked about Good Friday. If you didn't see that video, go check it out. But today we're back in chapter 11 of Hebrews, and we're talking about faith. It's Pastor Rich here. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of the Shop Talk family. If you get through this video and you like it, give us a thumbs up. You got any comments, please leave one of those. We are looking at Hebrews chapter 11. Now, the author of Hebrews is describing to us what it looks like to have faith. In fact, he gave us the definition of faith a couple weeks ago when we started in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That's the hard part about faith, right? We have to do our part to faith. We have to have faith. Sometimes we go through life and we're just hoping the right thing happens. Now, hoping is not a plan, is it? Hoping is not going to fill your bank account. You have to do your part in this. And that's what the author is going to describe to us today a little bit more. He's going to give us a bunch of examples. And he's really driving home the point that Christ is really all that matters. Following God is really all that matters. Our life here on earth is a vapor, but you have a bigger part to play than just your life here on earth. You can impact generations and generations. Just think about it. You're like, well, Rich, I'm just a regular guy doing a regular job and I have a regular family. Well, no. If you have kids, you are changing history. The way you raise your kids, the character you give them, the way you teach them to handle adversities, most importantly, the way you teach them to focus on God. So this author is talking to believers that are Jewish, that accepted Jesus, and they would have known all of these old stories. I don't have time to go into each person, but they would have known these stories well, and they would have meant so much to them. They would have gotten passed down to them by their parents and things. So, chapter 11, verse 17. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, "Through Isaac shall your offspring be named." He considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. Crazy story. Now, these stories are going to be back in Genesis. If you have not read the book of Genesis, go back and read the book of Genesis and do it with a wondering spirit about you, a heart that wants to understand, because these stories are so deep. Okay, Abraham, God had promised Abraham that he was going to have descendants as numerous as the sands on the seashore and the stars in the sky, just a lot. And that was a huge thing to have descendants. Well, Abraham is the father of all the Jewish people, right? So Isaac, God was going to use Isaac to further God's kingdom. Abraham knew it. It was a promise. But he told him to go sacrifice Isaac. Like, this is horrible to think about. The guy would have had to take his son up, and his son willingly go with him to be put on an altar. And they understood sacrifices. They were given sacrifices to God. But before you get offended here, let's look at it. What did God do for us? He sacrificed Jesus. Well, Abraham had so much faith that he knew that God would have to have Isaac so that he could have all this offspring. Have to have Isaac live and fulfill his life. So he knew that he would even bring him back to life. He was willing to trust God to that point. God stopped him. But God used that to show Abraham's faith. Boy, it makes you realize what little faith we have. If you put all your faith in a box, would it look like the empty box? Or would it look like a big, huge, full box? Well, unfortunately, walking through life, it doesn't take a whole lot of faith to live in America and do what we do. You can get a job, you can eke through a living, you can have something to eat. But this box, if it represents your faith, you don't take a lot of faith to do that. You take a lot of worry, a gut. You can get second jobs. You can do things. But God wants you to have faith. Faith that goes beyond what makes sense in your fleshly mind. That's a huge story that would have meant so much from him. By faith, Isaac invoked, now this is Abraham's son, Isaac invoked future blessings on Jacob and Esau, his kids. Another great story in Genesis. The readers of this would have known these stories well. By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, 12 tribes, bowing in worship over the head of his staff. And by faith, Joseph, the one that helped lead Israel out of captivity, he knew that his descendants were going to go to a promised land. And he said, hey, when I die, bury my bones, but pick them up and take me with you because I want to be with my people, even in his death. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, made mention of the exodus of the Israelites and gave directions concerning his bones. Crazy stuff. He knew it. But notice, these guys haven't seen it come about. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw that the child was beautiful and they were not afraid of the king's edict. Moses, shared story, they put him in a basket. The king picked him up. King's daughter, one of her servants, picked him up out of the water. Saved this boy because this king was killing all the Hebrew kids. They defied a king because God needed Moses. Wow. Does God need you? Yes. God need me? Yes. Let's find out what for, right? By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. See, he had it good. He had money, finances, but he was living on the side of the wealthy that was oppressing his people, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Now, this is a decision that we all make every day. Do we enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin? Do we make wrong choices? Because there's consequences. Or do we do the right thing? Do we follow God? Moses followed God, and he had a lot to lose. He gave up so much. But he knew pleasing God meant more. Being with God's people meant more. He considered the reproach of Christ greater than wealth, than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeking him who is invisible. Okay, you gotta read about Moses. It was a great story. He lived in the king's palace. He basically rejected him. He actually killed an Egyptian that was beating up Hebrew guys. He defended the people. And then, so he just left Egypt because he knew he'd get in trouble. He left the king. You know, that king had the resources to hunt him down and kill him because that would have been an embarrassment to the king. But Moses could have just lived a life of luxury and done his thing, had influence and power that was given to him, but it was influence and power over God's people and against God's people. Moses made the decision to follow God, not the world. We all have to make that decision. Every day, you're making decisions. Are you helping people? Are you helping God's people? Are you following and helping yourself, right?
By faith he kept the Passover and sprinkled the blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn might not touch them. That's talking about the plagues. That's talking about the destroyer was the angel that came and killed all the firstborn, the Egyptians. It was God proving to them that, hey, I am God. Stop oppressing my people and let them go. By faith, the people crossed the Red Sea on dry land, but Egyptians, when they attempted to do the same, were drowned. That's another great point, that it's better to follow God because you don't know what's going to come upon you. You rather be under the blessings of the Lord than the wrath of the Lord, right? God is slow to anger, but when he's angry, it's over. So this story talked about sea parting, God's people walking across on dry land, and then the water coming back over on top of the chariots. And I saw on the internet, so it must be true, that they found chariots at the bottom of the sea, the Red Sea. It's so amazing when history lines up and facts line up with biblical accounts, right? By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they had been encircled for 7 days. Another great story. Not a typical way to attack a city. They circled it and they circled it and they shouted, and the walls come tumbling down. And then they attacked it. Otherwise, it was a fortified city. It tells you again that there's nothing can stand up to your God. By faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies. A prostitute let spies come in, and she protected them as they left because she knew that the God of the Hebrews was the real God, right? And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, and stopped the mouths of lions, like actual lions that were trying to eat them, right? Quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. That's the thing with God. He makes the fight unfair because he's God. If you're on God's side, you have the victory. You have God who can defend and protect you. And we see it in these stories back in Genesis. It's amazing. Women received back their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release so that they might rise again to a better life. There's stories of women whose children died and a prophet came and breathed life into them, resurrected them from the dead. Talk about faith. They asked the man of God, the prophet, to help them. They knew God would. How many times do we ask God to do something? We walk up to him with an empty box and go, God, will you help me fill my box full of faith? And when God's trying to pour that faith in, it doesn't look like what we think it should. And we pour it out and we just walk on, walking around with an empty box. Right? Put the box down. Others suffered mocking and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They would not renounce God. They took persecution. And I think you and I can take some persecution. We're built for it. And God will be there with us. They were stoned. They were sawn in two. Now, it's said in history that the prophet Isaiah, that's how he died. He was sawn in two. Now, that's a world that hates God. That's a world that hates anything that looks like God. But recognize, the Bible even tells us this, that they don't hate you. They didn't hate Isaiah. They hated what he represented. They hated God. They were killed with the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, and mistreated. They walked through life, and they may not have looked wealthy. They may not have looked like they had everything, but God had to have them in a certain position in life to impact the people he wanted impacted that he knew would accept his gospel. It's hard to understand. But, if I was God, king for a day, we'd all be millionaires, life would be easy, but would they actually be following God? No. They'd be following themselves. But when you're walking through life and you truly have poured everything out, think about a runner at the end of a race. And if you give everything you got, you can't even walk at the end of that race. You're you're hanging down, you're gasping for air. Sometimes you're getting sick. That's the way these people were walking because they had given everything to God. But it's the only way to win a race, right? To be proven well, to put everything into it. Are you putting everything into following God? Of whom the world was not worthy. These people that suffered all this, the world really wasn't worthy of it. Some of them didn't accept it. The world was not worthy for Christ either. So Christ came and he gave freely. He gave for everybody to come to know him. Yet some still reject him. Or some say they know him, but still reject him because they won't let go of the reins. Some just fully give their lives like what we're reading about today. And it pleases God so much. And those are the ones that the world's really not worthy of. Just like Christ came into a world that wasn't worthy of him, right? Wandering around in deserts and mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. Even Jesus, when he was doing his ministry, he had no home to go lay his head at because he was out and busy and doing the Lord's work. Doesn't mean that Jesus was so broke. I have a hard time thinking that because of all of the frankincense, myrrh, and the treasures that the kings gave him at his birth. And, Jesus worked up to 30, probably had a pretty good income, a career, but he was called by God. He was put here by God, and that was his ultimate purpose, right? So he walked around to make himself available to the people. And all these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised. This is a hard part. Abraham, and I mentioned it earlier, they didn't see the promise of God come about. But we got to see by their action that they believed that the promise of God would come about. So even though we look back at these people, they were commended by their faith, they didn't have the same historical view that we do to know that God was moving in their life. Since God had proved something better for us, that apart from us, they should not be made perfect. Part of our purpose is to stand on the shoulders of these people that had this faith, to receive what these people had given us. And let me take that back to Christ. Part of our purpose, God created us for, every human, is to accept Christ, worship him, and walk in obedience with God to glorify him. That's our purpose. It's our purpose to do what we're doing now. That should strengthen, that should gird you up and let you know that you're not alone and really great people came before you and you're standing on their shoulders. So what's that mean for you today? That means fill your box with some faith. What's that look like? Right now, whatever comes to your mind first, that's what you need faith for. God, I don't know how you're going to work this out. I don't know how you're going to pay these bills. I don't know how you're going to surpass this health issue. I don't know how you're going to help my friends do X, Y, Z. I don't know how you're going to keep my marriage strong, God. I don't know how. But I'm going to ask you, I'm going to pray to you, and I'm going to look in your word. And I'm going to look for things, God. That's what we need to do. So whatever just came to your mind, stop and pray right now. Father, I'm going to pray with my friends, Lord, and we know that you are God of all things. And Father, you know each one of us. Everybody that's even hearing this will know, God, that you are God and that you know every hair on their head and you have a personal relationship with them, or you want a personal relationship. Father, whatever the needs are, God, we know you're big enough to give them. And Lord, we humbly submit ourselves to you and ask for your presence and your wisdom and your provision on this day. Amen. Love you guys. I love the God we serve. You take care now. Bye.